Where is InsurTech headed next? This is where indie agents own the answer. Welcome to the Vertafore Insurance Podcast. Let's go. What's up, dudes? Welcome back to the Vertafore Insurance Podcast. Super pumped to have you guys here. I have another very special guest who actually came in person into the studio, so we're rocking and rolling today on the video side of things. But I'm really excited for you guys to meet her. One of the things that I want to make sure we focus on for this podcast is bringing more of our learnings. What do we, when we rock and roll every day here at Vertafore, when we try new things, when we fail, when we succeed, when people change things up, when people have new ideas, whatever those are, I want to make sure we bring those out to the industry so that you guys can hear what we're learning and hopefully learn from those things too. Now, I understand that, obviously there's a little bit of a difference being that Vertafore is a relatively large company, and you may feel like, well, maybe some of those things aren't, specifically relevant to me if I have a 5-person agency or a 20-person agency. And I'll tell you right now, they absolutely are. They absolutely are. So what we're going to do is we're going to share with you the big idea, but we're going to boil it down into something that's really tangible for you to take away, no matter what size agency you are, no matter what size business you are. So with that, I'm really excited to introduce the one and only Krystal Buller. Welcome, Krystal.
Thanks for having me.
I'm pumped for you to be here, dude. And just so our audience has a little bit of a background on you, they're going to get to know you as this goes on, but I'll give you the tee up here. Krystal is our learning and development specialist here at Vertafore. She is also the co-chair of Black at Vertafore, which is a wonderful organization, is incredibly involved in the community, incredibly involved in Vertafore itself, and making sure that the voice of the Black community is heard and embedded in the decisions we make as a business. So she's really a leader here at the company, and that's one of the reasons I wanted her to come on and talk to onboarding specifically and share what she's learned over the past few years. I will tell you, my story of meeting Krystal was actually day one, I guess, of Vertafore. And I remember that, number one, I remember dreading the onboarding process, absolutely dreading it and thinking, oh my gosh, nothing in me wants to go to this. I was thinking of every, can I have another computer set up so I can just not be there? Can I, say that I'm sick or my aunt died or, whatever excuse I could come up with. But I'll tell you right now, day one, Krystal got on and she was so welcoming. Her energy, it completely changed that entire 2 weeks for me.
Now you're giving me a big head. I'm about to flip my hair and everything. Okay,
let's go.
Get my accolades, and I'm like, all right,
let's go. I remember your kiddos were, as kiddos do, they were needing mom in that moment, and
I remember my little girl was, she's a football player, ballerina. Okay. So usually she'll go set hut and hike something, and then you heard a crash. So yeah. I'm like, I gotta go for just 1 second. Sorry, excuse me. We're working from home. We're getting through it. But yeah, it's pretty rambunctious at times.
But you had that balance nailed down to a T. It never felt like. It felt like you were able to balance giving us your full attention and them your full. I don't know how you do it. It's a superpower. It must be.
Give them whatever they want. Usually,
I think it was fruit snacks.
Yeah. Usually promise something. And then the one reward them. I'm a pay mom, so if you do this, I'll buy you something.
I like
probably not the best. Science books probably hate it, but it works, especially if you have to do a meeting.
I love it. I love it, dude. Well, let's start back like pre-Vertafore.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, tell me, you mentioned that your mom was a drill sergeant. I would love to start there because that's amazing.
It was weird growing up. I didn't realize, I didn't know it was weird until I was grown. But I'm an Army brat. I wasn't on a base, but I was born in Germany, right outside of Landstuhl.
Interesting.
Lived on military bases, a new one every year. My mom said till I was like 5, and then she got out of the military. But it was very fun, at times. But anytime you go to a festival, there's always that military challenge. Mm-hmm. We would get treats if we could get through it. So you'd be like pigtails tutu trying to go through the Navy tour, just to try to see if you could do it with your mom yelling mind over matter in the background at the top of her lungs the whole time. So it was pretty interesting. It was fun. It was interesting, no.
Do you feel like that, look, not everybody can say that their mom was as attentive, right? Like, I have friends whose families weren't always weren't always present or weren't always there. So maybe your mom being too much present could be frustrating at times, but at the same time, do you feel like you walked away from or grew up feeling like you had a really strong grasp around things like discipline, like core values that have allowed you to be who you are today?
Yeah, I think I do. I think my mother she's a 4'11". She says 5 foot, but I measured her. A powerhouse with a honey blonde afro.
Ooh, she's fire.
She is. My mother, I always tell her, the way I grew up, she is steel with grace wrapped around her. She's very attentive. She's there. She's caring. But she's also like, we had a rule. You got 11 minutes. Something goes wrong, you can cry for 11 minutes, but after that 11 minutes, I don't want to hear it no more. You got to tell me what you're going to do to fix it. So even now, when something doesn't go my way, I'm like, I need 11 minutes. Just give me my 11 minutes. I'm going to pout. I'm going to cuss. I might throw a paper towel roll or two. But after that, I'm going to get up and get to it. And I think that is probably the biggest lesson I learned, even within my career. Oof. It's like to keep going.
The power of 11 minutes.
Just 11 minutes.
That's a book.
Yeah, it could be.
You're welcome. You're welcome
you're marketing,
for that.
So we'll just say, right?
Hey,
don't
look
try
at
to
you
get
making
me
the
a finder's
connections.
fee. Don't try to give me a finder's fee, but hey.
I love it. Okay, so fast forward a few years. You're grown up. What was your first meaningful, profession? Like, what was your first meaningful career move? Was it Vertafore, or was there something?
Vertafore.
It was Vertafore.
So, I went to cosmetology school. I became a med aide, and I became a mom young. I had my oldest at 23. And
respect.
When I got to Vertafore, I was just trying to keep my head above water. We talked about it before. I came to Vertafore 6 months pregnant with twins, and I never thought of a career. I just went from entry level to entry level, and through acquisitions and mergers, sometimes you didn't have a job at the end of that. And so when I came to Vertafore, I was like, I'm just going to do an entry level job. It's gonna be, maybe I could suck this belly and maybe they won't know there's 2 in there at 6 months. It didn't happen that way. But Vertafore was my first step into the real career world, because it's the first time I was like, oh, I can do this. And rolling into 6 years, and I think I had 3 college credits when I came to Vertafore, and I got my master's in August. So I'm like, when I say I am a Vertafore cheerleader, I am like, you need to come to Vertafore. I'm sneaking the Vertafore, my card, to Walmart cashiers. Like, you got great customer service. You should try to come to Vertafore. But Vertafore was my first.
That's awesome. Okay, so did you know when you first came here that you wanted to really invest into this specialty, into really understanding onboarding and what that experience should be like?
No. I started in customer support, and during that time we had a speaker named Myra Golden. She's on LinkedIn, but Vertafore had her come and talk to us. And I remember after that presentation, I told my then manager, I said, I'm going to be the Myra Golden of Vertafore. He was like, that's not a thing. I was like, it will be one day. that's what I'm going to do. And because she talked about customer service and training and experience. And when this job opened, I didn't apply for it. I didn't even try to apply for it. I was like, no, I'm not. I'm learning to be okay with change. But at the time, I was like, no, I'm not. I'm not going to change at all. And I didn't apply for it. And my manager at the time, he was like, Krystal, you need to apply for this job. And I was like, no, I'm not going to apply for it. I'm okay.
Wow, you were really set in your ways. Set. You were really like...
He threatened to call my mama. And I will never forget, he called me. He's like, if you do not apply for this job, I'm going to call your mother. I said, you wouldn't dare. He was like, she got that Kansas area code, doesn't she? I was like, she's your emergency contact. And I applied and I got it. And then I was like, he said, you said you wanted to be the Myra Golden. Be it. You said you wanted to be in training. And then once I got into L&D and then onboarding, military mother, first impressions are important. That's when I was like, well, onboarding is the first impression. I'm the first impression for a lot of employees to the company. So I'm going to make sure it's a damn good one. I'm going to do my best. I'm going to wear my orange Jordans on Monday. I got them on. They're on my graphic too, on our presentation. I'm going to show people why I love Vertafore because that love is going to translate. And then they're going to be like, dang, I picked the right place to be. Plus, a great onboarding experience increases like 69% of retention.
Wow.
Just by an awesome onboarding experience.
Yeah.
So I'm doing my part, I like to think.
Absolutely. I love that. The Myra Golden of Vertafore. That's a t-shirt right there.
See, another idea. I'm going to have to write it down.
Yeah, I guess, it's funny. I think about my own career path and in a previous interview with Krystal Buller, who's a new VP of product management, we were talking about why we made certain career decisions. And looking back, really all of mine have been, who are the people in the room? And I think that element of culture and making sure that people really, have a great experience when they're coming in is so important. Like you were mentioning when we were just talking, and you said just now, that first impression is so important. If someone walks in the front doors day one, and they don't know who to talk to, they don't know where they're supposed to be, they don't know what to do. I mean, at the end of the day, they probably feel like, what's my purpose here? And if you're not feeling fulfilled at work, if you're not feeling like, I want to be the Myra Golden, there's somewhere I'm going in this job, and it's not just to get up tomorrow and, be here at 8 a.m. with a coffee. Like, that's really, really important. That seems very hard to do.
I look on LinkedIn. One of the biggest things I pride myself on is I want everyone to feel welcome. So I look on LinkedIn, and so when someone walks in, they're looking at me, and I'm like, oh, hi, Krystal. Nice to meet you. And they're like, she was waiting on me. She knew my name. She was ready for me. She told me where to go. She had a seat. I didn't have to go looking for anywhere. She had a schedule ready. I think the biggest thing is like, I want everyone to feel welcome, but I want them to feel like I prepared for them. So they're not just coming in to like, oh, okay, we'll figure this out as we go. They're like, oh, I'm getting like star treatment here.
I love that. It kind of reminds me of, I want to say I saw like just a really short video on social media, I think from an insurance agency or maybe from a different small business. And I think they must have LinkedIn stalked this person and printed out or maybe Facebook printed out like a picture of their family, their favorite candy, and like put it on their desk day one. So when that person sat down, they immediately felt like, oh, I feel at home, like I know where I am, kind of thing.
Yeah, we have like swag bags ready. I don't know if you saw them, but we have some pretty cool socks. Now, okay, I know socks isn't everybody's thing, but good quality socks are like, it's up there with good sheets, okay?
Okay,
so
fair,
we give the swag bag, we make sure that their name is ready. I think the biggest thing is we don't want employees having to go look for something. We're like, oh, maybe you forgot your note pen, maybe you forgot a water bottle. We have that all ready for you, so you're not looking around for anything. Now I think it's pretty cool. I'm taking notes like, oh, maybe how can I figure out their candy bar without even being slightly more stalkerish than I am already hunting their LinkedIn profiles? Because it tells you when somebody sees your LinkedIn. But you're giving me some more ideas to even be better. So even if it's good, it can always be better.
Yeah, I'm just the messenger. Totally not my idea, but you're welcome to steal it because I don't even know whose it is. So besides making them feel, that sort of first impression, hey, we know who you are, we picked you, not just like, oh, yep, roles filled, cool, box checked, and now we're moving on. Like, we picked Krystal, we picked Sid, whoever it is, right, to come in and really take this role and make it something that it wasn't before. What about things like making sure that they understand process? Like, how do you help someone, get up to speed on how all that, any tips or best practices on that side of things?
Yeah. Well, one thing I would want to point out is not necessarily we picked you, they picked us, right? There was 1,000 places that they could have applied and they chose Vertafore.
Well said.
They picked us. And I think that's having that mentality, but making sure they're thoroughly informed. Mm-hmm. I have my phone number on the welcome emails. I have my email. So even if I gave employees the information, they got a quick question, they can call me, they can text me. I'm always available to help them out. But the first step is to make sure they know what they need to bring the first day. Mm-hmm. You give them something they can refer back to. So even if it's a simple email outlining the steps, we send the email, but we also now send onboarding guides for your first day. Like, hey, this is what your first day is going to look like. We're going to give you lunch. Let us know if you have a dietary restriction, but this is what we need you to bring. So when they walk in the building, they're not like, what was I supposed to do? They already know what they need to bring. We check in multiple times before their start week and just make sure they're thoroughly informed. And if we haven't heard back, I call them, be like, hey, sorry, I just want to make sure everything's okay. Do you have any questions? Did you see the emails I sent? Not in a stalkerish way, just to make sure, like, hey, you're good. Because we're so excited for you to join us. And make sure that excitement travels through.
So basically just making sure you help them understand with like a one-sheeter. Here's what to expect.
Yep, we have the one-sheeter, and then we have a little bit more detailed guides that we do attach to the emails now. So the one-sheeter is everything you need to know, but if you need more information, go ahead and check out the onboarding guide I attached to this email. So if they have further questions, they're usually answered in the guide, or they can just call me.
I like that. I like that a lot. Cool. What about like a buddy system? And I guess I'm thinking, especially in a smaller business, I guess I think back to my own, like, use air quotes here, onboarding at my dad's agency. Very loose term. Nancy, the accountant, was the one who sat down with me and said, okay, here's the big book of process, and here's all the things that you need to know. Just follow it step by step and you'll be golden. I'm going to tell you right now, 16-year-old Sid did not at all follow all 32 steps that were in the process. And there were definitely things left out of AMS 360, which is the agency management system he uses, at the time. But I, thinking back, I almost wish that instead of Nancy being the one to sit down with me, it was somebody who was doing the job that I was doing. Like another account manager who could sit down with me and say, hey, like, here's what to expect, right? You're going to get calls from clients and they're going to be angry. They're going to, or they're going to be really happy, or here's how you deal with this type of situation versus just like, here's the process, follow all 32 steps, and then you can go home,
I think for here at Vertafore, it's a partnership. So it's not just our L&D team and human resources. It's a partnership within your manager. I think it's so cool that a manager can go online to Workday and tell you who you should meet. So it's not, we can put that in our Workday onboarding portal. But what we do is the very first day they're with me, I like to say, I'm your buddy. If you need me, text me. I'm here. I'm going to be probably checking on you every 2 seconds anyway. I'm right in the room. But we set time for them to meet with their managers as well that day for next steps and expectations or wherever the case may be. So we get all of that compliance stuff out of the way. Then we introduce them to our company and our culture, but we invite their manager, or if there's a team member in the office when they start, to lunch. Just to say, hey, come in. So, now they haven't just met me and ate with me. They maybe ate with their manager. They maybe ate with a team member. Yeah. And we make sure that at the end of orientation, they know what they're doing next. You have your manager meeting. Now, don't forget tomorrow, your day's going to start at this time. Looks like you can work remotely if you want to, but we give them that extra. We make sure they know where they're going to go. We take the extra steps so they're not confused, and we pre-plan this a week ahead of time.
I didn't even think about the complexity before this podcast of the complexity of COVID and how remote work changes onboarding. Like, you can't, see people. And what's crazy to me is, if I think back to my onboarding with you, I was in Minneapolis, you were in Denver, and I never felt like, oh man, I wish I was in. I mean, of course I felt that in terms of like, yeah, I want to be in the office, but I never felt like I was missing anything. How did you do that? Now that I look back,
I let my weirdness shine through. If you let your true personality and your uniqueness come through, people feel like they're connecting with you, right? I send my stock employees a little bit. I see what I can find out on social media first, just to help if just to have a couple of things in my back pocket, or you listen to those cues. Someone started in Chicago, but there was a snowstorm. So I remember I asked, how are you doing in that snowstorm? That brings it out a little bit of them. So trying just to connect with each person. Sometimes it's harder. Sometimes we have 20 to 25 people starting, and it's harder to connect with each person. But especially when you have those smaller onboarding classes, it's easier to be like, oh, hey, how you doing? How's the weather out there? Or oh, I love that picture in the background. What is that? And it brings it out a little bit more.
Yeah. Well, and at the end of the day, I mean, I just want to reinforce the stat that you brought up at the beginning of the conversation, which is it's really expensive to not do this. So you might, I can see people listening to this and saying, whoa, that's a lot of extra time and effort and energy that I have to spend up front. I'd rather just do things, the way that I've always done them. The flip side to that is, well, if the way you're doing things now means that you're not giving someone a great onboarding experience and not really helping them embrace your culture and understand your process and be a true part of your business and feel like they have purpose, then what are you, how much are you going to lose on the back end?
Absolutely. And the stat came from the Society of Human Resource Management, SHRM, I think the acronym, how you say it, but it's like 3 years. It's like 69% will stay about 3 years minimum if they have a great onboarding experience, because that experience makes them feel connected to the company, right? And then also having that person, like, oh, Krystal said, if I needed help, just message her. I've been here almost 6 years. I can probably tell you somebody's name in every department. And I can be like, oh yeah, reach out to this person. And sometimes even making those introductions. So I think it's a step that's often overlooked when you don't have that great onboarding experience. And then also, we live in the digital age. So now it's easy to go on someone's, comparably, Glassdoor, to look up, and then they're like, this other order, I don't want to go through that onboarding experience. I don't know if I'm going to do it. So just trying to make it better.
Yeah, 100%. So how does, because there's two types of onboarding. There's employee onboarding, but there's also, bringing someone into your culture. There's also bringing clients into your culture. How much translates between the two? What's the difference?
They're actually extremely similar. So when I got into saying I'm going to be the Myra Golden in customer service and onboarding, what I realized is customer onboarding and employee onboarding, they all go through the 4 steps. And they're called, some you'll see 5, but it's like the 4 C's of compliance, 4 C's of onboarding, excuse me. Compliance, clarification, culture, and connection. they all follow the same steps. You got to get the legal stuff out of the way. You got to get the paperwork signed, right? You got to make sure that's done. You need to clarify, your role is this, my role is this. This is how I'm going to help you. This is what's on, this is what we need you to do, sort of thing. And then now you're seeing a bigger push is the culture, right? Maybe for Vertafore, it's showing how we have these awesome employee resource groups. We have these amazing benefits. But for a customer trying to show their customer onboarding, you want to show them this is what we are doing. One thing I've noticed when I did customer support is a lot of our insurance agents, they're out in their community. They're helping the little league teams, and you see banners everywhere, and showing the customer that culture of your business is still important. Because it's pretty cool. Maybe I want to go to this company because they did help my brother's little league team. I remember their banner, even though the team was great. Or like my son's little league team, he's not going to be in professional baseball at any time. But being able to have somebody willing to invest in him, it's like, oh, that's an awesome piece. So taking those 4 C's, even though they're slightly different from customer to employee, the basis is the same.
I like the second one. Let's dig into that one. It was, because you said compliance, clarification. So one of the things I remember, actually this was my insurance agent, and she retired a year or 2 ago, but she had been my agent for a long time. It's funny because I talked to her as a client. I also talked to her as someone who is, in the insurance industry and just trying to understand the life of an agent. So it's funny because I kind of got both sides. And I remember talking to her with that second hat on at one point, and her sort of opening up to me and saying, man, I wish that my clients would stop texting me like 6 o'clock at night, or 5 a.m. And of course, in my head, I'm like, oh my God, am I one of those people? Shoot, I should stop texting her.
Probably one of
those people, yeah. But to your point, if you don't clarify ahead of time, what the roles are, what expectations, hey, if you want to, during that onboarding, if you're a commercial client and you need a certificate, the best and fastest way to get that done is to go X. Go to the client portal, email this particular email address, reach out to your account manager, set the expectation at the beginning of it's like any relationship. If you don't show your partner that there's a laundry basket in a very specific place, like clothes may not end up there, right? And you could play the whose fault is that game, but at the end of the day, communication solves the problem.
Absolutely.
And setting the expectation solves the problem.
Absolutely. And it's not just right up front. You got to follow up again, because everyone's not going to remember. Sometimes I joke in orientation, I'm going to send a lot of stuff your way. I don't expect you to remember most of it, but what I do need to remember, I'm going to follow up with you, and I'll continue to follow up with you. And it's not like whether you have office hours, whether you have business hours, whether they have to go a specific route to get a form, fill out something with HR. Always having that information of where they need to go readily available will prompt their self-service. They'll go, okay, I can do this by myself. I can go ahead and handle this. I know that, 6 o'clock, Krystal doesn't have her phone on her. So I know if I email her past 6 o'clock, because I set office hours in Outlook, you email me past 5 o'clock, more than likely you're not going to get a response until the next day. But just being clear about this is what we need from you and when, because even with customers or employees, there's legal things you got to get through. I need this from you by this point. Just being clear. Sometimes I use Destiny's Child's bugaboo. Sometimes I'm a bugaboo. I'm like, hey, don't make me stalk you. I'm going to hunt you down a little bit. Just JK. But just saying, hey, I'm going to follow up with you. I need you to know what you need. I want to make sure you know what we need to be done.
Yeah. Yep. That makes sense. Okay. Well, let me ask this for agencies who are listening and saying, yeah, that sounds amazing. I want to make sure that my employees have that type of experience. You gave a couple tips. I think with that onboarding guide, I guess, is there a right place to start for that? If someone doesn't have anything like that, how would they, start to create that onboarding guide? What are the questions they would ask themselves or maybe ask their team? What does that look like?
Yeah, so it's pretty simple. The questions I would ask is, okay, what's the legal stuff I got to get out the way? What do I need a signature on? What's the stuff I need? I-9's got to be done within 3 days legally. So I know that needs to be a priority. That's the first thing I need to put down. This is what I need from you to continue this relationship, because that's what it is. And then from there, it's like, okay, this is what I need them to know. Then what would I like them to know? Right? And then thirdly, what do I want them to feel? Do I want them to feel welcomed? Right? And then you start to think about, you ask yourself that, and I'm a Googler, Google it if you have to. Ask yourself how you want to portray your company and yourself, and then fold that into your brand. Use your brand to say, okay, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to write all the steps down, even if I don't send them to the employee. This is what I need to do to remind myself. And then once you have that information, put it in a Word format, print it as a PDF, and attach it. Keep editing it. Keep revising it. Right? I think we're on like our 6th or 7th version of the employee guide.
Yep.
As legal regulations change, you got to change it. As branding changes, you got to change it, which is fine. But just start writing everything down. I'm a OneNoter. Use OneNote and put it out there and just try and ask for feedback. Because what's clear to me, after I've been at Vertafore for 6 years, may not be clear to someone else. So after employees start it, be like, hey, what did you think? Oh, this could have been better. And use that feedback to improve.
I love that. Almost feels like you could have a different onboarding guide depending on the role too. So in an agency, you've got sales, service, accounting, depending on, maybe you have a sales onboarding guide, a service onboarding guide, because the processes are different, and then like a generic one that you could hand out. And there's going to be overlap, obviously, but that way it's a little more catered to that person's, particular role in the agency.
Absolutely. What I think is an awesome idea is having your company-wide onboarding guide, and then maybe after they start, you can give them the sales onboarding guide. You can, because we know everybody got to do this step. And then you could tailor it even more. I like to tell people our onboarding experience is customized. So it's by time zone, depending on when you start now, when you're going to have your manager meeting. We don't want someone in California having to wake up at 6 o'clock to join onboarding, so we make sure they don't have to sign on till 8. But that means we don't want someone in New York having to wait until 1 to start their workday. So being able to customize that is awesome, and it will make employees feel even more welcome.
I love that. And I will give a plug for Agency Zoom. If you haven't checked it out yet, on the customer or client onboarding side of things, there's actually a way to create an onboarding pipe, and you can detail out every single step that you want to make sure that that service person takes to properly onboard an employee, following Krystal's framework there with the 4 C's. And you can even build automation into those different steps so that, let's say you have Sid Rowe coming in, buying a personal lines policy. You could have a different process actually for personal lines versus commercial lines, because you might want something a little more white glove. But when Sid Rowe comes in, just like in a sales pipeline, you'd kind of have those steps where you'd move her profile from step to step. And as you do, things are happening in the background. Emails are going out with information, with attachments, text messages are going out, tasks are popping up, all different kinds of things are happening. So you can literally build it into the system, and then really the system just either does the work for you or guides the person who's doing the work, which is pretty snazzy to make sure that you nail that customer experience every single time.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
So, yeah, I know. Gosh, that agency Zoom team should give me some commission or something. Krystal, thank you so much for coming on and sharing some of your knowledge. I am I'm really, really excited for what you continue doing here at Vertafore. I just feel like you're still just getting started, and obviously you've already done a lot, but I still feel like you're just getting started, and I'd love to have you back on, at some point to talk through the changes that you're continuing to make and all the awesome that you're bringing to Vertafore.
Awesome. Well, you know where to find me. I'm glad to come back.
Awesome. All right. With that, guys, have a good one, and we'll see you on the next episode. If you haven't yet been to Austin, Texas, between May 7th to the 10th, consider this your official invitation. Accelerate is the largest gathering of Vertafore users from around the country. And no matter if you're looking to be challenged by hearing the stories of successful owners who did things a bit differently, see cutting-edge solutions thanks to the implosion of the InsurTech ecosystem, or learn how you can maximize your current Vertafore tech stack, Accelerate has it all. So go to accelerate.netview.org, put it in your phone, put it in your computer, wherever you are, accelerate.netview.org, grab your ticket, and join us in the live music capital.